Hey guys, welcome back to this tutorial series. So this is going to be a video where I just give you guys some tips, or actually I'm going to give you guys 7 questions that have to do with triggers and parameters, and I just want you guys to answer them. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to write the question here, and I want you guys to answer it. Pause the video, take as long as you need, answer it. You can write anything you want, you can search up anything on the internet you want, but I want you guys to bring this answer from yourself. So here's the first question. In a world script, so this is a script made in the world section, what parameter or parameters does ray, when a raycast item is fired have? So this right here in the quotes, this is a this is a uh, trigger. So there's a trigger called when a raycast item is fired. So try to figure this out without looking at that, and when you have the answer, go ahead and unpause. All right. So I hope you guys have your answer. I'm gonna save this real quick so we can have it for next time. And so I'm just gonna open up the world script, and let's just open up a new script for testing. So this is, I'm not gonna name it or anything. I'm just gonna look for that trigger. So it's called when a raycast. Ah, okay. Let me just look for raycast. Raycast. Okay, when raycast item is fired. So you'll see right here, get triggering item. So if you answered get triggering item, you are correct. All right, so that's question number 1. Now let's do question number 2. So yeah, the first 3 questions are going to be really similar. After that, we're going to have 3 other questions that are similar, and then 1 challenge question. So number 2, in a world script, what parameter or parameters does when player clicks on UI HTML element have? And I'm going to put that on a new line. So don't worry, I'll tell you guys when to pause the video. Alright, you can go ahead and pause the video whenever you like and go ahead and solve it. Alright, now I hope you guys have your answer. Let's go ahead and just check it out. And remember, if you guys are just looking up the answers on the trigger here, then it's not really going to help you out. I want you guys to just think about the question, like, what exactly is going on in the trigger? And it's going to help you because when you need to make a lot of games, or you need to make a huge game really fast, if you know where exactly to look, you're just going to know what what exactly the trigger needs. And so right here, if you guessed triggering player, you're correct. Get triggering player. All right, let's do number 3. So again, these questions are really similar. So I'm just gonna erase this part. So in a world script, what parameter or parameters does every render frame tick have? So go ahead and pause the video. All right, so I hope you guys have taken a look at this. Now I'm gonna give you guys the answer. So every render frame tick. Every render frame tick. There it is. So if you guys guessed nothing, you are correct. There are no parameters in a world script. If this was in an entity script, do you guys know what the answer would be? Go ahead and think about that. What would be the answer if this was an entity script for this trigger? All right, I hope you guessed this entity. So if you remember the parameter called this entity, then that is what would be the parameter. So for example, this is this entity. Quite literally, it's called this entity. And I don't know why you would put this trigger inside of a entity script. That's kind of, I don't know if that would work properly, but yeah, so that's just theoretically what would happen if you put that in an entity script. You would get that free trigger, but you wouldn't have anything else. All right, so those are the first 3 questions, and they were all really similar. So now we're going to move on to the next 3. So now they're going to look a little bit different. So let's start with question number 4. Let's say that you are developing capture the flag, okay? And you want to make an area that teleports players across the map. What trigger do you use? So go ahead and pause the video and try this out. Alright, so I hope you guys have taken a look at this question, thought about it. I'm going to give you the answer of what trigger you should use. So I'm sure that there's different ways to implement this. You guys can go ahead and put in the comments if you have some answer and you want to know if it's correct for any of these. But let's just give you what my answer would be. I would use regions. So regions we have not talked about yet, but they're basically just boxes you can create, and they allow players to go through them, and you can detect when a player goes through them or leaves them. So regions are really useful for this because you can just check when a player enters a teleport region and then teleport them to another region. And it works out. So yeah, that would be my answer. You just use when a unit enters a region. Alright, let's do the next question. So now these next three are going to be kind of similar. They're asking what trigger you use. So, in an RPG game, so this is a role-play game, you want to make a magical talking stick. Every time you select the inventory slot that has this stick, the game sends a chat message, hello, into the triggering the into the player's into their chat. So only that player's chat. So let me just break this up into a couple lines so it's easier to see all as one. Alright, so let me just break this down, make sure it's correctly worded. So in an RPG game, you want to make an inventory slot that has a stick, uh that has this magical talking stick. You want to make an item. Sorry guys. You want to make you want to make an item. You want to make an item, this magical talking stick. And so when you select the inventory slot that has this stick, the game sends a chat message, hello, into the player's chat. So I want you guys to go ahead and try to figure out which trigger you use. Alright, so I hope you guys have thought about this question. Do let me know in the chat if any of these are too vague. But in my opinion, I think that the best trigger here would be inventory slot. So when a unit selects an item in inventory, because then this is going to give you the triggering unit that selected an item and the triggering item. So then you can just figure out if that triggering item is a talking stick and then send hello in the chat if it is. So that is the answer to that one. Alright, we got a couple more. So, in a Flappy Bird game, send a victory chat message to everyone when a player reaches a new high score. Which trigger do you use? Go ahead and pause the video. Alright, so now that you've taken a look at this, let's go ahead and look at my solution. So there's actually this trigger called a high score when a player gets a new high score. I don't know why there's two of them. I'm sure this is going to be fixed, but when a player gets a new high score, you can use this trigger to change that scenario. And if that doesn't work, there's also another way to do it, where maybe you have a maximum score rather than a high score. So maybe you were thinking about attributes and an attribute becoming full. So we'll talk about attributes more in the future, but basically that's another way that you guys could implement this. Alright, so that is that question, and now we're going on to the final question. This is kind of a challenge question. If you find it easy, then great job. If you find it a little tricky, that's okay. There's always more practice that you guys can do. You can always make scenarios for yourself. And I think the best way to practice this is just to make games. So, in an entity script for an item, how do you send a hello chat message to another unit touching your item in your hand? I hope I did not make any typos. Okay, so in an entity script for an item, how do you send a hello chat message to another unit touching your item in your hand? So go ahead and pause the video and try this out. Alright, so you might have noticed this is kind of hard to implement in the actual game. So if you had trouble actually trying to implement this to figure out how to do it, then here, let me show you how to do it. So I'm not going to actually go through all the steps, but let's just pretend we created an item, okay? And let's call that item my item for now. So then in this new script, we would have to figure out what trigger do we use. Well, we said that in the code, in the question, it's an entity script. That's a really big detail. That's the first thing. So if you guys took a look at that entity script, that's the first line. That means that we have to make the script underneath an entity. So let's just use the projectile instead of an item, just so it's easy to show you guys what's going on. And in this, we want to create a hello chat message to another unit that's touching the item in our hand. So an item that's already in your hand, there's going to be this script called this entity touches unit. So you want to use this trigger right here. And basically, you just send chat message to player. So I'm not going to actually test this out. I'm just going to show you guys theoretically how this would work. Sometimes there's a lot of bugs in the way and things like that. But the main thing is I just want to show you guys the main idea of the code. So, oops. But yeah, chat message to player. So let's just make it hello. And then we go to player. And so we want to do owner of the triggering unit, not owner of this entity, but rather owner of triggering unit. Because this entity is a projectile. So we would actually have to go through a lot of steps to get there. So now, if we wanted to check this out, we can go ahead and call on our trusty fish. Where are you, fish? Hello, fish. Where are you? Whoa, there you are. Okay, let's create a projectile. Boom, projectiles. Boom. And as you guys can see, it says capital H for hello, and that's from our script. So, there you go. That's how you implement that last question. It's more of a challenge question, so don't worry if it was a little bit difficult. But these are the kind of questions that you want to be able to answer because that's a lot of the scenarios that are going to come up when you're making video games. So I thank you guys for watching this video. I hope it helped you with practicing triggers and parameters, and I'll see you in the next one.